Well, the end of day one, a very hot day in Adelaide and an action-packed day again, Michael Atherton. 326 for 8, Australia, having won the toss and batted. How would you sum up that day?
Well, I think England will be pretty happy getting 8 wickets. As you say, it was a baking hot day, about 35 degrees, quite a dry, flat pitch that Will Jack's got 1 or 2 balls to spin already. But all the numbers suggest that Australia in day matches here, when they bat first, since 2000, they've only once been bowled out below 400. So I think if you can take 8 wickets, you're pretty satisfied with the outcome. But I think the outcome flattered England's bowling a bit at times, which was good in parts, Jofra Archer especially, not so good in other parts. An important drop early on when Usman Khawaja had 5 as well, when Australia were wobbling at 50 for 2. So, as always in a day, as you know, you'll look back and think, well, that's okay, but it could have been better.
I mean, the action and the news started before a ball went down. Steve Smith in the nets just near where we are right now, had a net, wasn't fit, dizziness. Khawaja gets his opportunity. It's an incredible story because 2 days ago, he looked like his Test career was done.
Absolutely. When he was left out of the team, they preferred Joss Inglis. I always get that name wrong. He must have thought his Test career was done and dusted. And this has happened to him before, of course, 4 years ago, this corresponding tour. He said he thought his career was done and over. And then he got a chance. Travis Head was ill for the Sydney Test match. Usman Khawaja came in, got 100 in both innings, and went on to extend his career impressively. And it looked as though he was set for 100 today as well before he got out. He actually struggled a bit at the start. I think he was 5 from 28, when he was put down by Brook at second slip. But it was almost as if that moment galvanised him into action. His feet suddenly started to move. He got a few clips away. And then, I thought he's going to get 100 here. There's nothing surer than that. And in the end, Will Jacks got him, but he played nicely.
He missed out. You said before the game you wouldn't have gone back to him. They had to today. Would you have opened with him or would you have batted him at 4 and seen how he played?
I thought it was certainly the right decision to leave him out with Australia 2-0 up, and he struggled a bit in truth against pace over the last couple of years. The feeling is he's been hanging on in there. So I thought it was right that they made the time to make that change. But then with Smith ill, I don't know whether I would have gone back to him opening and Head in the middle order. I thought there was more of a debate and a discussion to have there. But it looks like they've set their marker down now and their mind on Head opening with Weatherald, and that's how they're going to see it through to the end of the series. So they probably say the minimal disruption is to just have Khawaja come in for Steve Smith.
That was one great story for journalists like you. The other one is Alex Carey on his home ground, having given that masterclass in wicket-keeping at the Gabba. I think he's now the leading run-getter for Australia in this calendar year, batting at 6, and also he's a tough cricketer, which is what they needed today.
Yeah, it was a very emotional day, wasn't it? On 2 counts, really. Before the start of play, this is obviously the first national event since what happened in Bondi on Sunday, and then John Williamson sung, his haunting anthem, True Blue, out on the field. The whole ground stood in silence. It was a bit of a spine-tingling moment. And then obviously late in the day, the roar when Alex Carey brought up his 100 was incredible. It's a record crowd here, more than 56,000. They love their local boys doing well. They've seen Travis Head get 300s on the bounce here in the last 3 tests in Adelaide, so they're well used to that feeling of cheering on their hometown heroes. And pretty emotional for Alex Carey. Obviously looked up to the skies when he got his 100. His father, Gordon, had passed away in September from leukemia. This was his first 100 since then. I think he described his dad as his mate, mentor and coach. They obviously had a very close relationship in cricket as well as just a normal father-son relationship. So emotional day for him and his family. And I thought, he's just a cricketer at the top of his game. As you mentioned, he was brilliant at the Gabba. His wicket-keeping, fantastic. He's obviously taken a great deal of confidence from that. That's bled into other parts of his game. And they needed that innings today from him because, with those 2 wickets after lunch that came straight away, they were struggling a little bit.
And what did you make of that moment where every England player thought he nicked it? I think Alex Carey himself in the press conference said he might have got away with one. How do you explain that sort of situation and the use of technology. I think Simon Taufel's tried to clear it up on social media. What is your overall feeling about that moment and that snick?
So he's on 72. He'd had a bit of a life, hadn't he, earlier with Bryden Carse. Dropped a very difficult chance. I mean, it would have been a great catch at extra cover. But 72, he goes to /1 to Josh Tong. England are convinced. Massive appeal. You could tell from the appeal that England were absolutely convinced. It's given not out on the field. So that's the starting point. England refer. They use a slightly different technology here. They use Snicko. We use Ultra Edge at home. But what the third umpire sees then, remember the decision is not out, so he has to be absolutely certain with the evidence before him that he can overturn that decision. I think the third umpire gave the only decision he could give because the spike, and there was a spike, and the visuals of the ball passing the bat were so far out of sync. You know, I think the regulation is that if it's one frame out, is fine, they can do it. But it was massively out of sync. So I'm not sure what the third umpire could do, given that the on-field call had been not out. But I think certainly England's instinct was that he hit it. Alex Carey after the game said, you know, that might have been a possibility. You interpret that how you wish.
But it brings into the question the use of Snicko, doesn't it? Because the last game, Jamie Smith, was it? No, it was Perth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Jamie Smith, and Simon Taufel cleared that up. He said, third umpire's been told, if you're one frame out, that's fine. That's just the error in the system. But then if it's 2 or 3, it just becomes a little bit confusing for a viewer, a person on the ground, that then the whole point of technology is to try and clear these things up.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, we are from an era when there was no DRS and no technology and no Snicko, where you just got sawn off, you know, at will, or got away with one at will, whichever it may be. So I'm, just because of the era that I played in, I'm always a little bit more relaxed about it because, you know, we grew up with mistakes just being part of the game. But and technology has made the game and decisions in the game much more reliable than they were. But I don't think you can ever expect things to be 100% right all the time. You hope to get that, but I think you have to accept that just occasionally, you know, something will go wrong, and I think this was probably one of those occasions. That doesn't make it any easier for England to bear because he was 72 at the time, quite an important moment in the game. But you know, when you come from an era where there'd have been, you know, a dozen of those incidents every day when we played, wouldn't there?
Absolutely, most against me. We'll touch on England in a minute and how they bowled. What do you think Australia are thinking? 326 for 8. When they're sitting in their hotel rooms this evening, are they thinking missed opportunity?
I think they are. I mean, it's not a bad score, obviously, 326 for 8, but as I mentioned earlier, they rarely fail to get out for less than 400 here in a day game batting first Adelaide Test. And just the manner of the dismissals, you know, a few tame dismissals really. Travis Head, you know, driving uppishly, the 2 wickets after lunch, first ball after lunch, Labuschagne, Green just chipping aimlessly to mid-wicket. You know, there were a lot of soft dismissals in there, and I think they will think that this was a kind of opportunity, flat pitch, 35 degrees, baking hot day, where they could have almost put things beyond England, but they haven't done that, and now everything will rest on England's first innings. You do feel that with the temperatures that are expected, 39 degrees tomorrow, already we've seen a bit of turn from Jacks, Lyon obviously in their team, that a lot is going to depend on England's first innings. They have to get up to and beyond Australia on first innings so that they're not left with too much to do right at the end of the game.
How do you think England bowled?
Well, I thought Archer led the attack really well today. He obviously came in for a lot of criticism at the Gabba from former Australian players, some of it understandable, some of it not, in my opinion. But he was fast today in his opening spell. I think he averaged 89.3 miles an hour in that opening spell. Obviously wickets in his second, very economical third spell, you know, where he leaked, I think, 6 runs in 5 overs. So I thought he led the attack excellently, good figures. The support wasn't quite there, was it? Bryden Carse, he's got all that energy and character and mongrel that Ben Stokes talks about. But at the moment, in what we've seen in the 3 tests, just lacking a bit of kind of skill and accuracy. Tongue, I thought, started really well but didn't quite maintain that threat. And Will Jacks is a spinner learning his way. You know, he's picked up 2 vital wickets today, so England will say that he's done his job, got bonus wickets, but he's a bit expensive. He's gone for more than 100. So it was an in and out bowling performance, but I think they'll certainly settle for getting 8 wickets.
Problem with Jacks is he's learning his way. He is a part-time spinner, so that control of length is not there. We've seen it from England's seamers. We saw it today. They were too short. Bryden Castle in particular, Tongue after lunch was too short. At times, Jacks was too short. He got gifted a couple of wickets. It's a real concern, isn't it? You're going into an Adelaide Test match where we all know what you need in Adelaide. Let's be honest, you need a quality spinner. And England are not making do, but it's going to be Jacks. It could come down to Jacks against Lyon.
Yeah, and you know, it says a lot about where Shoaib Bashir must be right now, because you've got to play your best spinner here, and I'm sure England realise that. So they're basically saying that they think at the moment Jacks is as good or better than Bashir, and they've invested so much time in Bashir. But you know, combination of circumstances: broken finger in the summer, not in a county, so can't play at the end of the season if he was fit. I can't remember whether he was even fit by then. Lack of cricket ahead of the first test in Perth. He's played a Lions game against Australia A, but none for 120 in that, 2 for 150 at Lilac Hill. Figure's not flattering, so Jacks brings a little bit more in the field and with the bat, and if there's not much between the bowling, you can understand the selection. But, you know, you do need a good spinner here, and that's just a kind of measure of where England's spin is at.
Catching better today, obviously Harry Brook put one down and Carcer really difficult one. What about the captain saying before the game we need a bit of mongrel, we need a bit of dog from this, basically a bit of character and a bit of fight? Did you see that?
I thought there was a noticeable uptick in energy, vitality, whatever you want to call it, in the field on a difficult day. 35 degrees, going to get warmer tomorrow. So you can't fault that, but as I often say, you know, when we're talking about it, I think that those are kind of basic requirements, really. That's the starting point: effort and energy and all that kind of thing. They're at times a bit short on consistency and skill, Archer apart, but certainly in terms of, you know, the kind of energy that Stokes was asking for, or the response he was asking for, I think he will have been pleased with that. Brilliant catch from Crawley. Bad miss from Brook at slip. That was, you know, Khawaja on 5, 50 for 2, what might have been. But there are always those moments in a day's play.
Let's throw it forward. You've played some cricket here. You've watched a lot of cricket here. How do you think, with a 39-degree day tomorrow, will this be the way a typical Adelaide pitch goes? I go back to that incredible game where England got 500, Flintoff declared, and Australia ended up winning the game, and Shane bowled England out on day 5. Do you see it that sort of pattern, flat, and then suddenly flick a switch?
I don't think they ever kind of explode here, like if it's Mumbai or something, or Chennai. I don't think red soil that suddenly starts to disintegrate. It won't be like that. But you'd think under 39 degrees, temperatures hot today and then hot again, that the pitch is going to start to wear. So the first half of the game is where you set the game up. So early wickets tomorrow, get rid of Australia's last 2 wickets, and then bat big. All those batters, they put their faith in, and they've given a lot of latitude to over the years. Pope, Crawley, obviously Brook, Root. Get in, go big, make the first innings count, and try and set up the game there so that you're not leaving yourself too much to do on 4th innings, because you just don't know what it's going to be like on that 5th day.
Australia won the toss, batted on a very flat pitch. They're 326 for 8. I reckon they feel they should be way ahead of England and almost put this Ashes to bed. Now, all will depend on how England bat. They've got to get those 2 wickets. Mitchell Starc can be dangerous with the tail. But England's top 8, most of whom this hierarchy have stuck with over the years, it is time to deliver in the next 2 days as it gets hot and the pitch remains flat.